One of the most incredible narrations we find in the Bible is the narration of how the earth stood still for the sake of God's children. I am still wowed at that possibility. How did it make the children of Israel feel? This is why God is truly amazing. Look at the lengths He went to help the children of Israel. Not only does this narration remind me of how intense and mind-blowing God's love is, but it also reminds me of how incredibly powerful He is. It reminds me that God has authority over every created thing, and He would always use them to our advantage. It reminds me that our God is unstoppable. Nothing has the ability to stop Him, not even the forces of the earth or the laws of nature and science. Somehow, we might have always thought that the only unbeatable force in this world is the law of nature. But God has proven to us that He made nature and He has control over it. If He could go as far as giving His only begotten Son for my sake, why wouldn't He turn the forces of nature in my favor? Just think about it. If He sent His only Son for you, why would He not defy the laws of physics that He made? What can stop Him? Absolutely nothing. Let's take a look at the story together. Joshua 10, verses 12 to 14. At that time, Joshua spoke to the Lord in the day when the Lord gave the Amorites over to the sons of Israel. And he said in the sight of Israel, "Sun, stand still at Gibeon, and moon in the valley of Aijalon." And the sun stood still, and the moon stopped, until the nation took vengeance on their enemies. Is this not written in the book of Jashar? The sun stopped in the midst of heaven, and did not hurry to set for about a whole day. There has been no day like it before or since, when the Lord heeded the voice of a man, for the Lord fought for Israel. The Israelites were at the war front, and time was no longer on their side. It was getting dark. All Joshua did was cry out to God, and God heard him. Not only did the sun and moon stop so that Joshua and his army could continue fighting, but God also caused a mighty tempest to attack the Canaanites with rain and hailstones. God did more than Joshua asked. This affirms what Ephesians 3 verse 20 says, "Now unto Him that is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that works in us." God will always do much more than we can picture in our hearts. Joshua 10 verse 8. And the Lord said unto Joshua, "Do not fear them, for I have given them into your hand. Not a man of them shall stand before you." Joshua stood on God's promise and refused to give up, even when it looked like they would not have the victory God promised them. Time was no longer on their side, but he held God by His word and dared to believe the impossible. Now let's look at your life. What impossible situation are you going through? You see, time was running out for Joshua. So what do you do when time is against you? What do you do when the clock keeps moving and you are not where you thought you would be in life? What do you do when the years and months keep flying by and the wrinkles on your face begin to form? I want to remind you, never lose hope. Have faith in God. Just like Joshua, even in the face of the toughest challenge, keep your faith alive. You see, you can. God can give you the ability to accomplish something that would normally take 30 years to accomplish in one day. He is not limited. But there are two things you need to do. Firstly, have faith in God. And secondly, don't give up. Hold tightly onto His promises. God deliberately assures us with His word ahead of time so that we have something to hold onto when it seems too tough. For the eyes of the Lord are over the righteous, and His ears are open to their prayer, but the face of the Lord is against those who do evil. 1 Peter 3, verse 12. There is no situation too tough for the Father to handle. As long as we call to Him, He hears us and answers us. The problem with many of us is that we fail to call on God in our difficult times. If you are going through a difficult season in your life, don't get desperate. Don't get distressed. Don't forget God. You have a God who is in heaven, who has His ears open to hear your prayer. Instead of praying, we resolve to complaining and talking to people who have no help to offer us. God moved because Joshua called out to Him. If you want God to move for your sake, let Him hear your voice. Cry out to Him. All the help you need lies in Him alone. The devil will try to keep your lips sealed. Break free. Speak to your Father. Our prayers move God to action. Pray about that situation. Though many of us pray, we don't believe. Somewhere in the corridors of our hearts, we doubt if God can really do something about the situation. Joshua had never heard of such a feat from God, but he believed in God's ability to do anything. His mind was opened up to the possibilities. He was confident that God would show up for him in any way. God has all the power and resources to do anything. He cannot be restricted by anyone because nobody gave Him His power. Our unbelief is the reason why it is so difficult for us to receive from God. God will move heaven and earth for your sake. He will defy the laws of science and nature for your sake. He will do anything for you. The things that are impossible with men are possible with God. Mark 9, verse 23. And Jesus said to him, "If you can, all things are possible for him who believes." Joshua chose to believe the impossible. His mind was opened up to possibilities. He trusted God to hear him and answer him. This is what God wants to see in us. Open your mind up to believe anything. With God, anything is possible, anything at all. God specializes in making a way where there seems to be no way. He parted the Red Sea. Who could have thought? He made water flow out of a rock. He sent ravens, the stingiest of all birds, to take food to Elijah. Right from the beginning of time up until this day, God has been specializing in the impossible. Dare to believe. God is able. I am sure that when Joshua was in the middle of that battle and he realized he needed the sun to stand still, he had flashbacks of the God who led the children of Israel out of Egypt, and that built up his faith. I am sure Joshua saw God sending the plagues in Egypt, the frogs and lice and the boils. He saw God separating the Red Sea and turning their enemies into fish food. He saw the pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night. He must have gone back down memory lane at the fact that God had never failed him. Wait a minute. The same can be said in your life. If we look at your life and all the times God has come through for you, has someone here been healed? Has God made a way for you in the past when there seemed to be no way? Don't forget God. He hasn't brought you this far to leave you here.